Hey YouTube, Minsk13 here for another Project Spark tutorial. Lots of games have a feature that allows you to focus your vision on certain parts of your environment. Assassin's Creed calls it Eagle Vision, The Last of Us has Listening Mode, Thief just calls it Focus, and lots of other games have it in some form or another. Here's one way that it could be done, with a few tweaks, in Project Spark. Let's get going, or as Minsk would say, less talk, more code. I've turned down my resolution a little bit. It's going to be a little tougher on the eyes, but hopefully the frame rate will be better than my last video. Let's take a look at this in action before we look at the code. You see I'm standing in a crowd. There's 3 different types of characters here. You'll see that there's some fighters, some civilians, and some goblins. They're all set to different teams. Goblins are team 2, fighters are team 3, and the civilians, of course, are neutral. When I activate my ability, the world darkens, has a little bit of a shade of blue, and my enemies are highlighted in different colors according to their team. You'll also see that not all of them are highlighted. As I move away, some de-highlight, and as I get closer, they highlight again. You'll also see that the ones that aren't highlighted are slightly blurred out. So I have a darken, a highlight, and a blur effect that get added to this feature. Now, in addition to the blur, I've got this guy over here who helps me demonstrate that the blur is actually variable. As I get closer to a tight-knit group of enemies, the rest of the world blurs more. So if I'm around enemies that are more focused, and there's a few of them in a closer area, the rest of the world gets harder to see. If I'm in an area where they're more scattered, they get easier. Let's take a look at the code here. You'll see I have 2 light bulbs. The one on the top, I'll edit first. Both of these are attached to my head socket. But the light bulb here, you'll see that its intensity is negative. That means that instead of casting light, it actually draws light in. You see the intensity of this, or intensity of light, that's how we get this negative effect here. Oh, I didn't know that that happened. I would put it at 2.5 if I could figure out how to do this again. I'll have to look again. Well, that was kind of fun. Also note that both of these lights are stable. They're not pulsing or flickering or anything like that. The second light is casting a blue light with some pretty moderate intensity, just to kind of give a little bit of an effect. You can change that to whatever color you like. You can take it out altogether, whatever you want. You'll see my goblins are set to team 2, and my fighters are set to team 3. Now let's take a look at me. My team is 1, so that I show up as a different team as everyone else. That's set once. And the detection mode Boolean value is equal to false. I called it detection, you can call it focus, you can call it eagle vision, you can call it whatever you like. Now, I've got 2 things up here that are variables as well. I've got focus distance equals 20. The only reason I put this up here is because focus distance actually shows up in a few places, so I just wanted to make it easier to change if I wanted to. You can also set it up so that when you level up, this changes, things like that. So, the blur amount, we'll take a look at later. Alright. Now, when you push the right bumper, it toggles the Boolean value. True, false, true, false, true, false. That's all that does. When it's false, the light bulbs turn off. I just use the in-world picker to pick each light bulb individually. If anyone knows how to put these in an object set so that I can turn them off at the same time, with the same tile in the same line, let me know. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get it to work. I'd really like to be able to use groups of light bulbs, because I think that that would really be helpful for fun lighting situations. But anyway, now when detection is equal to true, the light bulbs both turn on. Also, the blur effect starts. Depth of field is when your entire field of vision is not in focus. The far blur depth is at what point the farthest point at which something is in focus. The far focus is a variable that I'll show you in a little bit. The far blur amount is just how much blur there is, and the blur amount is another variable that you've already seen. So we also have the highlight. So when Team 2 allies intersect nearby enemies. What's a nearby enemy? Well, it's any enemy that intersects the group of objects closer than a particular focus distance, which in this case is 20, as per our variable up at the top. Basically, any enemy closer than 20 is a nearby enemy. So when Team 2 allies, so anyone on Team 2, intersects nearby enemies, so nearby Team 2 allies, we turn in blue. Strength 5. I tried the default, I didn't like it, I made it a little better. Team 3, turn them orange. You can set that to any color you want, any strength you want. You can change it from highlight to hologram or anything like that. Now, the far focus. I'm going to go down to the second line first, and you'll see why in a little bit. When the distance to the farthest object in nearby enemies is less than the focus distance, which it pretty much always will be. I think you can actually remove this. I have it set, 1, because I'm a little paranoid, and 2, actually to match line 30. Just visually match it, and you'll see what line 30 is in a little bit. But it's just an aesthetic choice I made. But when those are there, when the distance to the nearby enemies is less than focus distance, the far focus equals the distance to the farthest nearby enemy. Basically what that means is that if the closest or the farthest nearby enemy is 15 away, 15 is the far focus. If they're 12, 12 is the far focus. That way the focus actually drills down as you get closer and closer to your farthest enemy. Now the distance to the farthest object equals 0. That means you're touching them. Far focus will equal something obscenely low instead of turning to 0 or some negative number. Okay, that's really important. Otherwise the blur will just go away. That is first, and then we have else in 31 and then 32 so that it actually gets seen. So, oh, sorry about the variable there. All right, now let's take a look at the blur amount. Blur amount equals the focus distance divided by far focus multiplied by 25. I'm never going to turn this formula into a math teacher because it's not built very well for that, but because of the way code is structured, I wanted to put these parentheses in there to make it easier to understand. So basically we've got far focus multiplied by an arbitrary number in that 2.5 there. You can change it to 5, you can try 1. It just changes the intensity of things. So you got far focus divided by that amount equals the blur amount. So let's take a look at this in action again so that we can see I don't know what's happening. Let's take a look at this in action again. So we start out, the light bulbs are off. I'm standing in my crowd, and there we go. Enemies as I get closer will highlight and get unblurred. When I'm farther away, things will blur. As I move away, things unhighlight and blur down. When I get close to a group of enemies that's close, the blur changes. Now, you see that roll? My light bulbs are attached to my head, and they go underground when I roll. If anyone knows how I can fix that, let me know. It's a little flaw there, but anyway, so we have the variable blur getting shown off there. And once again, there we go. If you like this code, if you want to use it in your level, feel free. I've got the level posted right now, but I'll have to take it down eventually. Please give me credit if you use my code. And yeah, don't forget to go for the eyes.